beautifully shot. It was so cinematic, gorgeous, gorgeous beauty shots. Um, but talking about a really important topic that I don't think that a lot of people are aware of or really think about, which is how harmful the commercialization of farming is, and on so many levels, but right down to the seed level. And there's also this monopoly on seeds where it's really difficult to get seeds that are not already stripped of certain things, of like their natural seed. And so having these indigenous seeds to the land and keeping these indigenous farming practices is so important because they operate so differently from their core. um, and one thing that I really that stuck with me was saying that if you feed the plant or you feed the seed, then it doesn't know how to feed itself. And you're adding these fertilizers and chemicals and insecticides and everything like that, you're not allowing the seed to actually build up its own resistance and to get that from the land itself. So the land is now stripped, and then you have to add it back in synthetically, and it's going to result in lower quality food. And we have kind of accepted this as the norm, where it's hard to find fruit and veggies and produce that isn't commercialized. You go to the grocery store and all of the fruits look exactly the same because they want it to look uniform for beauty standards. And we've taken all of the nature, all of the natural things out of nature, which inherently already knows how to thrive. But because we've decided to make profit out of it and commercialize it on this like large global mass scale, we've taken out the the true essence of the food. So I think that this documentary teaches us a lot, informs us of a lot, and it was fascinating from beginning to end.
This documentary is really a method of teaching us all about this war being waged on the African agricultural system, which has farmers fighting for their seeds and wanting to not allow them to get into the hands of corporations who are vying to take over in the name of development. And I responded to the way this documentary was shot specifically because it was so beautiful and theatrical and visually compelling and informative as well. So you can see the difference between seeds that are naturally curated and those that are curated specifically for commercial use. And the juxtapositions that were within this were so stark, like the commercial farm and the local farms, and just seeing the difference in what it all looks like. Additional use of chemicals and fertilizers, which are used in most commercial farms, are killing the soil and removing the nutrients from the crops. But the supermarket system sort of pushes for the use of all of these additional chemicals and preservatives. And all of those are for the purposes of corporate interest. So it makes you think, well, what are we eating? And what are the nutrients that are supposed to exist in these fruits and vegetables? Do they exist within these foods if we're creating them all for the purposes of mass production? The message I left with is there is a benefit in looking into these farmers' practices that existed before things became industrialized, not so much as a step backwards, which is what some will make you feel that you're taking a step backwards by, going back to our historic practices, but as a way to take what's already working and improve upon it.
It was so nice to see with these rise of documentaries of these different issues, not only on a global standpoint, but individual to each of these countries. This dives into the government control of what these people can and can't plant. And, it dives into just their source of means to survive, and how do they go about being aware of these issues and fighting for their own rights, and seeing the standpoint from viewpoints of many. What's so nice is that you kind of, it's so interesting to see the way food works everywhere, and how there are these rules set in place, not only from the means of traveling with food, but the way the food is put in the ground in the first place. And being able to see, like, it's a visual experience. Film is a very visual experience. And when you're sitting here seeing these people in their element and working, knowing way more than you do, by the way, um, and seeing how they adapt and uh, get street smart and find a way to survive, I think is a very interesting story to see. And like I said, at the end of the day, it kind of makes you a little bit more grateful for how easy things are here as compared to other countries.
I often hear about, corporate entities interfering with world food production and access to water and things, but just specifically here dealing with seeds. I had not had this information before. Um, Very interesting. It was very eye-opening to see this. Again, it's another example of how corporate entities somehow, like, they don't consider certain things to be basic rights, like access to food and water and things that should be basic rights to everybody all over the world. But just seeing how these folks need their seeds, they need their autonomy, as they say, throughout the film. And they don't want to accept these government sourced seeds. They're bad for their farming cycles, and they're bad for the health. They're bad for losing their autonomy. So a lot of eye-opening insights here into a topic that I was not well versed in before. So I'm glad that I saw this.
I really like the main premise, the subject, how the government institutions are trying to kick out farmers, from their places. They're trying to replace farmers with this big industry style agriculture, claiming that things are going to go better, but then looking at the data, looking at the analytics, there's actually a 30% extra hang, a 30% extra hunger after the industry, after this big industry trying to take the local farmers' place. Actually, more than 30% of the population is suffering, even more now. So everything turns out to be a complete failure. And at the same time, I really liked how the film gives this positive message, and how the worker, the agriculture, the local farmers are bonding together to get back and get to work again as they used to be, to help their people, to help the community, because they really care about the community. They're not like big industries that they only care about the money. And I also loved how the direction and the cinematography are structured with these moving shots. Shots are never static, are always moving, pushing, pull out, wide shots, earlier shots. I think they are really powerful as well. They really help in keeping the audience glued to the screen.
I think that one woman said it best of all, that the government does not care about them. That's why they even mentioned that the governments and billionaires are buying up a lot of the land in this, which is not right for independent farmers. It's hard for them to compete. And this documentary showed it, that they're willing to accept aid because it's what they need to do. We used to only rely on independent farmers, and now there's so much doing it at the industrial stage that they're getting harder and harder to find, though they're the ones that should support. And documentary like this, The Last Seed, actually shows why it's important to help and fund and buy the produce and goods from independent farmers. They're struggling to survive, and this documentary shows that they have precision about the seeds they pick. They care about what they're growing, whereas the industrial ones really don't. They just grow. But these people are caring. They pick out the seeds and try and cultivate that will have the best taste, the best look, that will grow and produce more. It's what they want. And some of these farms have been in families for generations, and they're struggling. And they've always had as farmers dealing with the weather and stuff, but these ones, they're actually fighting the government now. And that's why that one woman said the government's evil, but if they have to accept aid from them, they need to survive. We shouldn't be letting farmers live like this.
Give you exposure to the way that different parts of the world work and different, you know, challenges and struggles that countries and people are going through. And I don't think I ever would have known without this kind of film, especially not from the people themselves, like not from, learning about it like from a book or like in, from in like a kind of textbook or a schools type setting, but learning about it from the people, hearing their experiences, hearing why they're so passionate about it, I think is so valuable. And I really, really loved this. Like I said, I thought it was really, really well done. I thought it was really well researched. There was a lot of different perspectives. There was a lot of different like points of view that all kind of backed the same narrative about why this is an issue, what the like presenting what the issue was, why it was an issue, and the kind of freedom and what direction they're trying to go to solving this problem.